Everybody, welcome back to the NC State Insider Podcast. I am your lead beat writer for NC State on SI and your host here for the pod, Tucker Sennett. Excited to talk more Wolfpack football today. Big game against the Duke Blue Devils coming this weekend. Duke is 1-2. Obviously, your Wolfpack is 3-0 coming into this one after that big win over Wake Forest a week ago in Winston-Salem. Really, really strong start to the season for Dave Doran in year 13. High flying offensive performance against the Demon Deacons, and they've survived some struggles defensively here early in the season by making halftime adjustments and fixing some issues and just being able to survive in these games. It's been really impressive to watch. It's definitely some things to work on defensively, but overall a very solid start for this team in an ACC that is just constantly in chaos in these first 3 weeks. It's been incredible. Really just an incredible start to the college football season. But let's start to focus in on this Duke matchup. I figured today would be a great time to go over some matchups in this game, some individual, we're talking head-on-head matchups. Um, in this game between the Blue Devils and the Wolfpack on both sides of the ball. And I've narrowed it down to four matchups that I am going to be keeping an eye on during the game. NC State's a little tricky to do this with because at least defensively, with those multiple looks from first year defensive coordinator DJ Elliott, you never really know what you're going to get. And we do have Sebastian Harsh suspended for the first half of this game on the defensive line after he was ejected for targeting against Wake Forest. Doran did say that they tried to appeal that decision, but they were not granted the appeal there. So they will be without Harsh for a half. They've already done this year with Brandon Cleveland being suspended from the fight in the Military Bowl against ECU. So um, this is not something they're new to, but Harsh is obviously a massive contributor to this defense, so his loss will be felt. But we're going to start with a battle on the offensive line for the Wolfpack. And Duke has some serious talent on their defensive line. So Jacarius Peak is going to be tested by defensive end Vincent Anthony Jr. Anthony Jr. is off to an unbelievable start in the 2025 season. He's already matched his sack total from last year with 5 sacks through 3 games. And well, some of it might be right place, right time. This guy has proven that he can be a game wrecker. He's forced a fumble already. He's been really, really talented in these first 3 games, and 3 of those sacks did come against a ranked Illinois squad in that loss to the Illini for Duke. But Anthony Jr. performed really well. Did miss some bad read or have some bad reads against Tulane this last weekend. Jake Retzloff, their quarterback, just ran all over this Blue Devil defense, and Anthony Jr. just had trouble keeping contain a lot. But on passing downs, this is a guy you really have to watch out for. And Jacarius Peak came into the season with pretty high expectations. He made that move to left tackle after Anthony Belton went to the NFL last season. He's been mentored in this really productive NC State offensive line system. I mean, this is a program that produces NFL talent at those positions almost every year. So Peak was sort of expected to be the next one to take that step. And it hasn't been perfect, but he still shows the pretty phenomenal physical traits. This is a guy who was on Bruce Feldman's freaks list going into the season. Um, he's just an unbelievable athlete at the position. So his run blocking has been tremendous. And obviously, with Hollywood Smothers starting out the way that he's started out, that's been a huge asset. And it's really going to come down to how does he hold up against Vincent Anthony Jr. in passing situations for CJ Bailey, because they really haven't faced a defensive line like this. And this is a unit that is going to play you straight up. They're going to send four. That's kind of what Manny Diaz does. because he counts on these phenomenal athletes and edge rushers to create pressure and wreck your game plan. So this will be an interesting matchup to watch. I think Peak probably has a little bit of an edge, but I do think Anthony Jr. poses a pretty serious threat, and CJ Bailey's going to want to stay away from that left side as much as possible. But we'll get to another issue here with that defensive line versus offensive line matchup in a little bit. But let's talk about CJ Bailey and a matchup that he's going to have to deal with, and that's against one of the top defensive backs, a cornerback or cornerbacks in the entire country, Chandler Rivers. This guy was first team All ACC last season. You could make an argument that he is the best corner in all of the ACC, far and away the best defensive back that the Wolfpack has seen so far in 2025. This kid is a phenomenal football player. He's aggressive. He's physical. He'll come up and just mess up your run game. This guy does everything and he's fast. So that's why I think the Bailey matchup is interesting because with the pass rush coming in, Bailey's going to be probably on the move more than he's been in recent games. So Bailey's going to have to be aware of where this guy is. And if he's going to be making more throws on the run, this is a guy who had 3 interceptions last year. He breaks up a lot of passes. He is really a phenomenal talent at the cornerback position and certainly a guy who has aspirations for the next level. So Bailey's going to need to be really sharp on passing downs against Duke this weekend because Rivers is everywhere and he will ruin your game if you allow him to. Um, he just this is a phenomenal talent and I'm really excited to get to see him in person because you don't often see cornerbacks like this. I texted my normal co-host for episodes like this, Daniel Rios, my other beat writer, and he described Rivers best. The kid is a dog. He's an absolute dog, an aggressive football player that you just love to see at that position. So it'll be really interesting to see how Bailey attacks him. He's already seen him. He saw him last year. He had one pass defended by Rivers. So I think, Kurt Roper, the offensive coordinator, is probably going to try to keep Bailey focused on other parts of the field in the game. We'll see who Rivers matches up with. My guess is it'll be a combination of Noah Rogers and whoever else moves around on that side of the field. Maybe a little bit of Keenan Jackson over there, just because he's a physical corner. So and Keenan Jackson sort of bodied those Wake Forest wide or defensive backs last week. So I'm excited to watch that matchup. That should be really interesting. Then on the defensive side of the ball for the Wolfpack, like I said, it's really hard to predict how this team lines up down to down. So I couldn't really find a good defensive back matchup for the Wolfpack, even though Duke has some talented wide receivers, just because I don't know what it'll look like. So I'm gonna go with the Jack linebacker Kean Sloan against Duke quarterback Darian Mensah in this game. This is a big matchup, especially in the first half, because remember, you're not going to have Sebastian Harsh if you're the Wolfpack for that first half because of the suspension. So that's your best pass rusher outside of Sloan out of the game. Right there, done. You don't have him. This is a quarterback that can hurt you in a big way, rolling out of the pocket, throwing the ball downfield. He is a phenomenal passer and a good enough athlete that he can make throws on the run. And he really likes to make throws on the run so much that they actually run plays to get him out of the pocket with space to make those kinds of throws. That's really hard to prepare for if you're a defense, especially when you're not going to have your top pass rusher in the lineup for 2 quarters. Sloan has been incredible to start the season. He's an everywhere player. He just flies around the field. He's been everything that they could have hoped for. They haven't faced anything like Mensa yet. They have not fit. They've faced sort of Chandler Morris was he's kind of a gamer. He doesn't quite have the arm talent that Mensah has, but he was a guy who could make plays off schedule, but just not it's not the same level. The first game against ECU, Caden Hauser, very traditional, gets the ball out quick in that kind of RPO fast pass system. And then Robbie Ashford was the most mobile quarterback that the Wolfpack had faced, but they were so committed to stopping the run in that game. He blew he he blew by them with a couple deep passes, but he really couldn't get anything going after that, and they bottled him up pretty well on the ground as well, just because he had no threat of passing. Mensah hasn't run a lot this season, but he does have some ability to do that. I don't think that'll change in this game just because I'm not this Wolfpack secondary hasn't shown that they're going to blanket your wide receivers to the point where the quarterback is going to have to take off or else it's going to be a coverage sack. That's just hasn't been the case so far, especially with these young safeties. So Sloan's going to have to really be able to set the edges, and he will move around on both sides, is my guess of the defensive line, just to throw some different looks at Mensah. And with his speed, he will be really important in keeping him in the pocket. And Dave Doran talked about this a little bit, kind of teasing what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to create their own pocket with that defensive line and just make sure that he can't make those off time, off schedule throws by forcing him to survey the field under pressure and just if he's going to step up, he's going to step up and he's going to beat you with his legs, and you're going to have to count on that second level of defense to prevent that. But Sloan is going to be so important, especially in that first half, and it'll be really interesting to see how they deploy him, whether he's playing more of a rover or a spy even. Um, so that's the other one we'll be watching. And then finally, back to the NC State offensive line. Teague Anderson, the right tackle, is going to be going against the other side of the Duke two-headed pass rush monster, Wesley Williams, who was kind of their premier pass rusher a season ago. Hasn't gotten to the quarterback yet this season, off to a little bit of a slower start, but this kid is a phenomenal football player in his junior year, coming off a season in which he sacked the quarterback 8 times, finished with 48 total tackles last year. Just a true game record. Anderson's been really good, especially in run blocking over the last couple of games. He was phenomenal in that last game against Wake Forest, and he's going to be critical in making sure that the Wolfpack is able to run the ball effectively here, but also he hasn't faced anything like this pass rush wise in terms of individual talent. But he talked a little bit today about how the East Carolina matchup was really helpful for him because it was sort of a wake up call in terms of how exotic things might look playing for a power conference school because ECU threw so many different looks. They had these guys in jail on the offensive line, just miserable with all the looks that they threw their way. So this is something that NC State's going to have to be ready for. I don't know if Duke will spice things up a little bit, but they do have these two edge rushers who can create problems. And then if they decide to send guys from the inside, extra guys against this weaker interior offensive line for NC State, Bailey's going to have to be able to find ways to create extra time and they'll it could be messy that way. So if Anderson and Peak can hold up against Williams and Anthony Jr., different story because then, you get that run game going. The run game has been better up the middle than the pass blocking has been. So you can count on that and Hollywood Smothers is a monster. It's that simple. This kid's a phenomenal football player. So we'll see how they attack this Duke defense that hasn't gotten off to the start that a lot of people would expect for a Manny Diaz defense. And we'll see if the Wolfpack can continue this hot start to the 2025 season. Thanks for listening to the podcast. I hope you walk away from here with more information than you walked in with. That's always the goal. You can follow my social media at Senate Tucker on X for more content. You can follow the website's X account at Wolfpack on SI. You can also follow the website on Facebook, the NC State Wolfpack on SI Facebook page. And you can find more episodes of the NC State Insider Podcast on the Sports Videos on SI YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe to those and get more press conference coverage and also the podcast, of course. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow.